Thorfinn's about to take turning the other cheek to a whole nother level. Hi guys, it's your boy Shinobi Sage here with a double review for Vinland Saga Season 2 episodes 21 and 22. Let's get it. If there's one thing I can appreciate about Vinland Saga, it's the care that Yukimura puts into his minor characters. And Omar took center stage during episode 21. I must give it to the writing here because I remember first reading this in the manga and initially disliking Omar's character for trying to act tough. But that's the beauty of having a good anime adaptation. They're able to convey much more than you get on a manga page. The scene of Omar seeing all of the injured and dying men was a great scene, and they did a very great job at depicting war. That scene was very reminiscent of Saving Private Ryan or something like that. What even made this scene much more emotional was seeing the girl he slept with crying for her father and her father telling him to look after his daughter and family. That was absolutely gut-wrenching, especially when you know that he's kind of the one who caused all of this to happen. The voice actor did a great job at portraying his crippling guilt. In the nearby house, Snake informs Kettle's family that they have two choices, either to surrender and become outlaws or to continue fighting. And this man Thorgil, after nearly losing his life, he wants to go again and fight Canute with a small number of people. But the thing is, he's not the one to make the decision. That needs to be Kettle's successor, who is Omar. And Omar has totally gained my respect during that episode. He not only stood up to his family, but his entire culture by saying that they should surrender to Canute. And I really enjoyed how during that scene Thorgil was the one who tried to remind him of everything that's happened up until this point and tries to encourage him to think about his honor and how his honor is more important than his life. I do believe that Thorgil does love Omar, but the love he has for him comes from trying to shape him into becoming the ideal Viking. But Omar has matured so much that he stands up to him and he tells him that back then he didn't have the courage to accept their mockery. And what a fucking brilliant line that was. I swear the dialogue in this show is as peak as the storytelling. This episode shifts to focus on Thorfinn, who went to Canute's camp wanting to see him, and one of the soldiers named Drott just mocks him and hits him a few times, and it's here where we can really see how Thorfinn has the most courage by allowing himself to be mocked. And when juxtaposed with that soldier's reaction of being laughed at by his peers, it just hammers home the two conflicting viewpoints on the screen. Thorfinn even decides to participate in the bet that the soldiers are placing on him, which is to take 100 punches from Drott. But even when Einar asks him why he's doing this, he tells him it's because of all of the kindness he's received from the people on the farm. And it does challenge Einar's feelings in that moment as well, because after what happened to Arneas, he doesn't want anything to do with them. But Thorfinn decides to go through it anyway in order to protect the farm. When we get to episode 22, Thorfinn was on some Captain America type shit. Man got knocked down almost half to death and stood back up and said, I can do this all day. And what was so great about this scene was that when he stood back up to face Drott, he spoke with that same rage he had in season 1. That was so sick. But Thorfinn is a man of his word and takes 100 punches, and by the end of it, Drott and everyone else was just silent. And I mean, what a way to shut down your haters. He earned everyone's respect there, and he just exemplified with those actions what it means to be a real warrior. And the scene I've been waiting to see get animated for a long time happened. Thorfinn the goat said those words, I have no enemies. And guys, I couldn't have asked for a more perfect adaptation. The scenery, the voice acting, the swelling music and the dialogue. Mappa Studio made that shit look biblical, I swear down. When he said that, I actually started clapping, you know what I'm saying? To hear him say the same words his father told him when he was a boy, and after all of the stuff he's been through, it's almost as if I'm watching Thors himself. After this, Thorfinn is granted an audience with Canute, and at first you would think that there would be bad blood between the two, but they've both matured and moved past that. Canute apologizes for what happened to Askeladd, and Thorfinn apologizes for giving him that scar. And the interesting thing here is, when you see both of them, I can't help but think that these two have reversed characters in a way, with Canute becoming more violent in his methods and Thorfinn now being a pacifist. Thorfinn asks Canute if he could leave the farm, and he refuses to do so, and he blames Kettle for not surrendering in the first place, because if they did, all of those men wouldn't have died. When asked about wanting to create a paradise on earth, Canute stretches his hands out to the sea and he commands the waves to stop, but they continue to move, and he uses that to make a point. I remember the first time I read this in the manga, I started laughing. I was like, what the fuck is he doing? But this is actually somewhat based in real life. There was an account where Canute actually did this, but the historical Canute only did that to show his followers that his power cannot be compared to that of God. But in the anime, even though the symbolism remains the same, the motivation is different. It's to challenge God. Canute's speech to Thorfinn highlights his worldview about the Vikings. To him, the Vikings are the epitome of depravity, according to the fall of humanity in the Bible. Being the Viking king gives him the authority to control them, and if he can control them, he can save them. It's almost like trying to tame a wild beast. The possibility of achieving a utopia will be more possible if the worst of all people can find salvation. During this season, we've actually seen this from him, trying to control their instincts by forbidding them from pillaging and doing all of that type of stuff. The irony of this is that despite him hating God, he's almost developed a messiah type complex, and he's still perpetuating violence and boasting about his status as the king. That's why Einar was so pissed off and started calling out his hypocrisy. And it was a fantastic idea on Yukimura's part by crafting the story during medieval times. It's honestly perfection. I can't imagine the story being told any other way. When I watch this scene and I look back to season 1, it just goes to show how much of an impact Askeladd had as a character. In my opinion, Askeladd was the main character of that season. It wasn't Thorfinn, because his actions and his death effectively shaped the two characters into who they are today. After Canute explains his ideology to Thorfinn, he orders his forces to surround Thorfinn and Einar and tells Thorfinn that if he wants to stop him, he would need to take him down. Guys, these 2 episodes were brilliant and Mappa knocked it out of the park again. I wanted to watch these 2 episodes back to back because I knew there was going to be a lot to talk about, because the themes from episode 21 carried over to this week's episode. It was great seeing Thorfinn and Canute interact again and seeing their clash of ideologies as well. We only have 2 episodes left, so we'll see how this conflict is wrapped up in the next few weeks. If you guys enjoyed the video, please like, share and subscribe, and until next week, stay blessed.